While I'm convinced that Raceface is selling a lot of carbon cranksets these days, they still have aluminum. So here's a quick look at the Raceface Ride crankset. This is designed for cross-country and trail and is also very similar to the Chester and Respond cranksets. All I got from the store was a black box, but it does have this label on one end, and you can see the description. Ride cranks, designed for cross-country, 32 tooth narrow wide chainring, 10 speed, but it works just fine up to 12, and 170 millimeter cranks. This is made in Taiwan. Single chainring, narrow wide. It does come with the bottom bracket, the EXI system, as Raceface is calling this, and this is the other crank arm. Also in the box you're going to get this user manual / installation manual. They do describe pretty much everything you need to know, but get your magnifying glass out of that drawer because you're going to need it. Crank arm length. Over here on the axle, which is 24 millimeter axle by the way, there is a nice seal, rubber seal. The right side or the drive side crank arm has the pedal washers attached to it. This comes with a spider, 104 millimeter BCD spider. This means that you can install chain rings all the way down to 30 tooth, no smaller than that. On the other side, the same crank arm length and a nice machining, but you see the 64 millimeter BCD attachment points here if you want to install a granny gear. So I guess you could turn this into a 2x if you really wanted to. Looking at the chain ring, you can see 32 tooth. This is a Raceface narrow wide type of chain ring. Finally, the bottom bracket. This is for a 24 millimeter spindle, just like the Shimano ones. You can actually use this crankset with the Shimano bottom bracket if you want. You can see is an X-type Race XC. On this little sticker here, you are going to see how many of the spacers you need to use depending on the type of deployment for your cranks. And at the very end here on the actual bottom bracket cups, you're going to see the direction you need to tighten this on. This is the left hand side, so normal thread, rotate to the right. Race XE, it's going to give you the torque value, which is 47 Newton meters. Weight of the cranks is 642 grams. If I add the bolts and those tabs, 667. The chainring itself, 32 tooth narrow wide. This is pretty light. Here is 702. And if I add the bottom bracket that they provide, that is 811 grams altogether. First step in installation is the bottom bracket. You're going to need a bottom bracket tool. Prefer to use this socket type because it's attached to a torque wrench for the 45 Newton meters. Then take the bottom bracket apart. The two cups, you are going to have the drive side to be installed first. Read the label to figure out how many of the spacers you need. In my case, I only need one. And I'm going to put grease on the threads of the cups, so on both ends, here on the drive side and on the non-drive side. Also at this very end where there is a little rubber gasket. First, some quality grease on the thread here of the bottom bracket. Next, bring your drive side or right side bottom bracket cup. This is a reverse thread, so start to tighten it by hand and just tighten it to that 45 Newton meters. Only difference on the non-drive side or left side is that this is a normal thread. Then grab the torque wrench and tighten to 45 Newton meters again. To get the cranks ready, just apply some grease here and here where it touches the bottom bracket. Also remove this cap and make sure that the spline has plenty of grease, and also on the inside on the thread you have grease. And put that cap back on for now. If you want to make any changes to your chainring, this is the time. In my case, I replaced that round with an oval. Just remember to put some Loctite on your chainring bolts and use 6-7 Newton meters to tighten them up. You also have this drive side crank bolt that, as you can see, is full of grease. It has a washer and an O-ring, and you're going to need an 8mm Allen key to tighten it up. Non-drive side goes in first. Don't remove that cap yet. It's supposed to be a guide. Make sure you have a little bit of grease on the seal here on the drive side. Remove that cap and just fit it on the spline. Here we go. Now grab that crank arm bolt and we're going to tighten this to about 50-60 Newton meters. By the way, if you ever need to remove these cranks, you're going to need a crank puller. This is a Park Tool CWP7. You just screw this in here and then grab a wrench and just pull it out. In our case, we want to install, so 8mm hex key, 50-60 Newton meters. Pull on the cranks a little bit, make sure you don't have side-to-side play at all, and just give them a turn. Make sure that they move freely. It is okay or normal for newly installed cranks to be a bit stiff. They will loosen up a bit after a couple of rides. Get that pedal washer onto the axle, a bit of grease, and install your pedals to about 40 Newton meters torque, and you're ready to take your cranks for a spin. And that's pretty much the end of my videos as well. I put a lot of links in the description below for tools and the cranks themselves. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please do so now. Don't forget to like the video and keep an eye on social media. And until next time, I will see you folks on the trails. Cheers.